I think my mother did exactly the right thing. I think it's absolutely extraordinary.
The order arrived without ceremony, but its consequences struck the palace like a thunderclap. Queen Camilla had quietly appointed her son, Tom Parker Bowles, as Royal Hospitality and Cultural Advisor, a newly created position carrying access to private planning meetings, state banquet preparations, and ceremonial decisions. No council vote had taken place. No senior royal had approved it. And when Princess Anne saw the signed appointment notice, she did not hesitate. She demanded that the palace revoke it immediately. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Anne received the file during a morning briefing at St. James's Palace. She read the first page once, then again, more slowly. The Royal Hospitality and Cultural Advisor was a newly invented palace post meant to influence formal dinners, visiting dignitaries, charitable receptions, and ceremonial planning. It was not an honorary label. It carried access, influence, and a place beside officials who had spent years earning the trust of the crown. The Princess Royal removed her glasses and looked directly at the private secretary. Had the order already been circulated, the answer changed her expression. Camilla had signed it personally, and Tom's name had already entered the internal system. Anne placed the document flat on the table. Royal service, she said, could not be turned into a family favor simply because no one had challenged it quickly enough. Then she noticed the empty space. The Royal Household Committee, the senior group responsible for approving sensitive palace appointments, had issued no reference number. Charles had not signed. William had not been consulted. Even the approval page was missing. The blank line did more than expose a clerical gap. It showed that the normal process had been bypassed before anyone could stop the position from becoming real. Anne's anger never became loud. That made it more dangerous. She instructed the Lord Chamberlain's office, the department overseeing official palace operations and ceremonial arrangements, to freeze Tom's access credentials immediately. She also ordered a formal revocation notice prepared before he could enter a single planning meeting. This was not a request for discussion. It was a demand for reversal. Across the palace, an aide carried Anne's written objection into Camilla's private sitting room. The Queen read the opening sentence, tightened her grip on the page, and remained silent long enough for the aide to feel the weight of what had begun. Then she asked one question for the very first time. Who gave Anne the authority? That question would soon drag Charles, William, and the entire palace hierarchy into a conflict no private secretary could contain. This was never simply a battle over one appointment. For Anne, it was about protecting a lifetime of duty from personal influence. For Camilla, it was about securing a place for her family inside an institution that had never fully embraced them. And for King Charles, it was a test he had spent years avoiding, the moment when loyalty to his wife collided with responsibility to the crown, with neither side willing to retreat. Anne felt the insult more deeply than anyone around her understood. Princess Anne had spent decades building a reputation based on discipline, service, and the belief that royal duty must remain separate from private affection. To her, the palace was not a family business. It was an institution supported by public trust, and every official role had to be earned. Watching Tom enter that world through an unsigned appointment made the Princess Royal feel that years of sacrifice had been reduced to a rule others could ignore. Camilla saw the matter differently. The Queen believed her son's experience as a food writer and cultural commentator made him useful in discussions about state dinners and official hospitality. Royal hospitality meant the planning of formal meals, receptions, and events used to welcome guests on behalf of the monarchy. She also believed Tom's appointment carried a deeper meaning. For years, her children had remained close to royal life, but never fully inside it. Giving him a place at the table felt, to her, like overdue recognition. Charles received Anne's written objection while reviewing correspondence alone. King Charles read the first page, then lowered it without speaking. His equerry, the senior officer responsible for supporting the monarch's daily duties, waited quietly for an instruction. None came. The king understood exactly why his sister had acted. He also knew Camilla would see any reversal as a rejection not only of Tom, but of her entire family. That silence revealed the trap around him. Charles could defend his wife and risk weakening the rules. Or he could support Anne and leave Camilla feeling exposed. The woman beside him wanted loyalty. The sister who had defended the monarchy all her life expected responsibility. For once, the king could not satisfy both. William learned of the crisis through a confidential call from a senior advisor. Prince William asked one question immediately. Had his father approved the appointment? The hesitation on the other end alarmed him. He then said that no relative of a reigning consort, the husband or wife of a monarch, should enter palace decision-making through an undocumented process. The prince did not publicly support Anne, not yet, but his private judgment made his position clear. Camilla refused to let officials settle the matter for her. Before noon, she sent Anne a direct message requesting a private meeting that afternoon. No aides were invited. No witnesses were named. No formal agenda appeared. Behind that closed door waited years of resentment, but the true point of no return had begun weeks earlier. The appointment had not begun with a committee paper or a palace proposal. It began during a private dinner at Clarence's house, when frustration overcame caution, and Camilla made her son a promise she was never authorized to keep. Only 4 people heard the conversation. By the end of the evening, one senior aide knew a boundary had been crossed. Yet nobody challenged the Queen directly, until that promise became an official order bearing the royal household's name. Camilla had grown tired of being overruled. For months, the Queen had watched her suggestions for state banquet menus, guest seating, and cultural events return from palace departments covered in changes. A state banquet is a formal dinner held for visiting leaders and important guests, and every detail carries diplomatic meaning. To her, those repeated corrections felt less like routine planning and more like another reminder that her judgment was still being treated as temporary. Tom Parker Bowles had quietly become her most trusted source of advice. He spoke to his mother about British food, regional traditions, and ways to make royal hospitality feel less distant. Camilla began passing his ideas to staff without naming him. When one proposal succeeded, she praised his instinct. When another failed, her frustration deepened. The breaking point came 3 weeks before the revocation crisis. During a private dinner at Clarence's house, Tom's full banquet proposal was rejected by palace planners. He had suggested a menu built around regional British dishes, but officials argued that it lacked the diplomatic balance required for an international occasion. Camilla read the rejection, set it beside her plate, and told her son that she would create an official advisory role for him. Tom did not celebrate. He asked whether Charles and the Royal Household Committee had agreed. That committee is the senior group that approves sensitive palace roles and access. The question forced Camilla to pause, but only briefly. She assured him that she would handle the formalities and insisted that his expertise deserved recognition, after years of being kept outside royal life. A senior aide heard everything. Camilla's deputy private secretary entered with revised banquet papers, just as the promise was made. The official remained silent in front of Tom, but later warned the Queen that appointing a close relative required independent approval. Camilla closed the folder. She said the position would be advisory, not constitutional, and ordered a draft letter prepared under her household authority. Days later, the aide sent Anne's office a documented timeline of the dinner and the warning that followed. The Princess Royal understood immediately. The paperwork had not created the decision. It had been written afterward to make a personal promise appear legitimate. Anne carried that timeline beside the unsigned committee file when she went to meet Camilla. The Queen could dismiss a missing signature as an error. She could not dismiss the recorded sequence of her own choice. When the two women finally faced each other, Anne arrived with no accusation, only evidence. No aides sat between them. No cameras softened the moment. Camilla stood beside the fireplace with Anne's objection folded in her hand, while the Princess Royal remained near the door, carrying the appointment file against her side. Their disagreement had already frozen one palace credential and divided the king's advisors. But inside that room, the conflict became personal. Camilla demanded respect for her authority. Anne demanded respect for the crown. Neither woman offered an apology. Anne declined the chair offered to her. Princess Anne kept the file pressed against her side and waited for Camilla to speak first. The Queen remained standing as well. That simple refusal turned the meeting into a test of power before either woman had said a word. Camilla defended Tom immediately. She argued that his experience was real, his advice was useful, and the role carried no constitutional power. Constitutional power meant authority that could affect the formal duties or legal position of the monarchy. She insisted that other royals had trusted relatives before without being treated as though they had threatened the crown. Anne opened the file. The Princess Royal pointed to the blank approval line and said Tom's ability was not the issue. The problem was the way he had been placed inside the household. No committee vote. No independent review. No valid reference number. Affection, she warned, could not be allowed to replace procedure simply because the person making the promise wore a crown. Camilla's anger sharpened. The Queen accused Anne of treating her children as though they would never be acceptable near royal life. Tom, she said, was being punished without having done anything wrong. To her, the rejection felt like proof that her family would always remain outsiders, welcomed socially but denied any serious place inside the institution. Anne did not soften. She placed the aide's written timeline on the table. The documented account described the Clarence House dinner, the promise made to Tom, and the warning Camilla had dismissed afterward. The Queen's expression changed as she understood that the private conversation had entered the official record. Then Anne delivered the ultimatum. The appointment had to be withdrawn voluntarily before the end of the day. Otherwise, the Princess Royal would submit a formal motion to the Royal Household Committee, forcing the senior approval group to revoke the role and record the reason for doing so. Camilla looked at the prepared withdrawal letter. She picked up the pen, held it for a moment, then pushed it back across the table. "I will sign nothing until Charles hears my side." Anne closed the file. Princess Anne told her that the king had already received the evidence. The Queen remained frozen as Anne left the room. The door closed behind her, and the withdrawal letter stayed unsigned. The decision now belonged to Charles, but the monarch was about to discover that even his freedom had limits when the institution itself was at risk. Charles had the title, the authority, and the final signature. Yet the palace was not a private household where every family wish could become official policy. The moment Tom's appointment created access to state planning and publicly funded operations, it entered a system governed by precedent, scrutiny, and accountability. Charles could defend Camilla emotionally. He could protect her dignity. But saving the appointment would require him to ignore the very safeguards designed to protect his reign. The king sat alone with 3 documents spread across his desk: the appointment order, Anne's written objection, and the aide's timeline from Clarence House. The Royal Household Committee was the senior group responsible for approving sensitive roles involving official events, confidential planning, and publicly funded palace work. Camilla's signature had started the process, but it could not complete it. Charles touched the empty approval line more than once. He never reached for his pen. That blank space had become the heart of the crisis, because it proved the role had entered palace records without the independent review required to protect both the institution and the people serving inside it. Anne had no personal power to dismiss Tom. Princess Anne could not simply erase the appointment with one command. But her years of service, her place on the committee, and her standing within the family gave her the authority to force a formal review. Once she did that, the king could no longer bury the matter quietly. Camilla entered before he had made a decision. The Queen told Charles that revocation would humiliate her son and make her appear powerless inside her own household. She asked him to approve the role retroactively, meaning after the original decision had already been made, and end Anne's challenge before it became official. Charles looked at her, but his answer came slowly. He said signing now would make the situation appear worse. It would look as though the monarch had used his authority to repair an improper family appointment only after the process had been exposed. Camilla heard the hesitation immediately. The Queen understood that he was no longer deciding how to save the role. He was deciding how to end it. Then William's written opinion arrived. Prince William avoided mentioning Camilla or Tom by name, but he supported the requirement for independent approval. His statement removed any hope of portraying Anne as isolated or personally hostile. The Lord Chamberlain delivered the final blow. The senior official responsible for ceremonial operations confirmed that Tom's access badge could not be issued without a valid committee authorization code. No code meant no access. No access meant no functioning role. Anne requested an emergency committee session for the following morning. Charles now had one night to persuade Camilla to withdraw the appointment or watch its rejection enter the permanent record. By sunrise, the quiet escape had vanished, and the palace began dismantling the appointment piece by piece. The revocation did not arrive with raised voices. It arrived as a single cream-colored envelope placed beside Camilla's breakfast. Inside was the committee's decision. The appointment was invalid. Tom's access request was cancelled, and the proposed office would be removed from palace records. Anne had forced the machinery of the monarchy to act. Yet the most devastating consequence was not written in the document. It was the realization that Charles had declined to stop it. The emergency committee had voted before sunrise. Its members ruled that the position lacked independent review, financial approval, and safeguards addressing Camilla's family connection to Tom. Those safeguards were meant to prevent personal relationships from shaping official palace decisions. Without them, the role could not survive. Anne heard the result without celebration. Princess Anne asked that the official minutes, the written record of the committee's decision, focus on procedure rather than personal blame. She wanted the appointment removed, but she did not want Camilla publicly humiliated. Her victory remained controlled because, to her, this was never about defeating the queen. It was about restoring a boundary. Camilla opened the envelope alone. The queen read until she reached the sentence, confirming that Tom's appointment had been cancelled. Then she stopped. She lowered the page, removed her glasses, and sat without moving. The tea beside her remained untouched. For all the formal language in front of her, only one truth mattered. Charles had allowed the vote to proceed. Camilla called Tom herself. She refused to let an aide deliver the news. He listened quietly before telling his mother that she should never have risked her position for him. The words carried no anger, but they wounded her more deeply than any committee judgment. She had tried to bring him closer to royal life. Instead, she had made him the center of a palace scandal. Charles entered after the call ended. King Charles tried to explain that the decision could not be overturned responsibly once the missing approvals became known. Camilla turned toward him and asked why he had allowed Anne to dictate the moment. He began to answer, but she looked away before he could finish. Across the household, the roll disappeared piece by piece. Staff removed it from internal directories. Tom's briefing papers were collected. A prepared nameplate was taken from a desk before he had ever sat behind it. Anne then made one final intervention. The Princess Royal blocked a proposal to release the detailed reasons for the revocation, and insisted that the public statement refer only to an administrative review. Charles understood what she had done. His sister had defeated the appointment, then protected his wife from the full consequences. He sent word asking Anne to meet him alone, not as king, as her brother. For the first time, the conflict moved beyond rules and appointments to the wounds carried by two siblings protecting the same crown differently. There were no folders on the table when Charles met Anne that evening. No private secretaries stood near the door, and no committee language protected either of them from the truth. The king looked exhausted. The Princess Royal looked resolute but no longer angry. For years, they had served the same monarchy through opposite instincts, he through emotion and accommodation, she through discipline and restraint. Now Charles needed to know whether his sister had protected the crown or deliberately wounded his wife. Charles chose a small private library instead of an official office. King Charles poured the tea himself, making it clear that this was not a formal royal meeting. A constitutional discussion would have involved advisors, written notes, and official language. This conversation involved only a brother, a sister, and the damage left behind by a choice neither could now undo. The king asked the question directly. Would Anne have fought the appointment with the same force if it had involved someone outside Camilla's family? His voice held disappointment, not anger. He wanted to believe the Princess Royal had acted for the monarchy. Yet part of him feared that older tensions had shaped her judgment. Anne did not avoid the truth. Princess Anne admitted that the family connection made the danger more serious. If Tom had entered the household through his mother's signature, the public would see influence granted through marriage and personal loyalty. She told Charles that allowing the role to survive would not have protected Camilla. It would have exposed her to a far greater scandal once the missing approval became public. Charles lowered his eyes. The king then confessed what he had not told anyone. He had seen the draft appointment days before it was issued, but he had chosen not to question it. He wanted Camilla to feel secure. He wanted her to believe that her judgment carried weight. His silence had seemed kind at the time. Now he understood that it had allowed the crisis to grow. Anne revealed what she had done after the vote. Through her documented request to the committee secretary, she had prevented the timeline of Camilla's promise to Tom from being published. The Princess Royal could have allowed every detail to enter the public record. Instead, she contained the damage. Charles finally understood. His sister's severity had not been cruelty. She had destroyed the appointment, while protecting his wife from the greater humiliation of a proven favoritism scandal. The king reached toward the file he had brought with him, then stopped. He left it closed. "You did what I should have done before it reached you." Anne accepted the words without triumph. Princess Anne agreed to support a unified palace statement, confirming that royal appointments required independent approval. But she set one condition: Camilla had to accept the decision publicly. The family had reached its private truth, yet the outside world was already turning one cancelled appointment into a national argument. By morning, the palace's attempt at containment had failed. A cancelled credential request, a deleted advisory title, and an emergency committee meeting had left too many traces. The public did not know every word exchanged between Anne and Camilla, but it understood the central conflict immediately. A royal relative had been appointed without approval, and the Princess Royal had forced the decision to be reversed. Suddenly, Britain was debating not merely a family quarrel, but the limits of royal privilege. News organizations moved quickly. They confirmed that Tom Parker Bowles's proposed advisory position had been cancelled after an internal review led by senior members of the Royal Household Committee. That committee was the palace body responsible for examining sensitive appointments involving official access and public resources. The story mattered because the role had not been ceremonial. It would have placed Tom close to state planning, royal events, and decisions funded through the household. The country divided almost at once. Some commentators praised Anne as the guardian of royal standards, arguing that she had protected the monarchy from favoritism. Others defended Camilla, saying her family faced suspicion that relatives born into royal life rarely endured. The debate became larger than one cancelled title. It exposed the uncomfortable question of who truly belonged inside the palace, and who was allowed to decide. One newspaper captured the mood with brutal simplicity. Its front page carried a full-width photograph of Princess Anne leaving a royal engagement beneath the headline, "Anne draws the line." A smaller image showed Camilla arriving alone at Clarence House. The contrast said everything. Duty on one side, isolation on the other. Anne saw the paper during her journey to another engagement. The Princess Royal glanced at the headline, folded the page once, and placed it beside her without comment. She understood that a private act of discipline had become a public symbol. Yet she also knew symbols could simplify pain until no one remembered the people trapped inside them. Camilla faced that pain directly. The Queen arrived at a scheduled charity reception as reporters shouted questions about Tom. She paused for half a second, steadied herself, and continued inside. Her silence protected her dignity, but it also revealed how deeply the scandal had reached. Buckingham Palace then released its formal statement. The royal residence and administrative headquarters confirmed that all future appointments involving official access would require independent approval. Without naming Anne, the statement validated everything she had argued. Camilla answered through a documented statement issued by her private office. She acknowledged that the proposed role had not completed the required process and confirmed that no replacement position would be created. That evening, Charles summoned both women privately. The institution had spoken. Now the family had to decide whether duty had preserved unity or destroyed it. The appointment was gone. Tom would receive no palace title, no private access, and no place inside royal decision-making. Anne had prevailed, but she entered the final meeting without triumph. Camilla had lost, but she refused to appear defeated. Between them stood Charles, no longer attempting to postpone the choice that had brought the monarchy to this point. What followed was not reconciliation in the sentimental sense. It was something harder, colder, and ultimately more important: acceptance of a boundary. Charles brought both women into a private drawing room and closed the door on the last argument. King Charles made one fact clear before anyone could reopen the dispute. Tom's role would not return under another title. A private drawing room was a family space rather than an official office, and that mattered because the meeting was no longer about procedure. It was about responsibility. The king then confirmed the new safeguard. Every future appointment involving a royal relative would require independent review before any promise was made. That review meant senior officials outside the immediate family would examine the role, its cost, and the access it created. No single royal signature would ever again be enough. Camilla turned toward Anne. The Queen said the intervention had made her feel distrusted, diminished, and publicly exposed. She did not apologize for believing in Tom's ability. Yet she admitted that maternal loyalty had pushed her beyond institutional caution. Anne answered without cruelty. Princess Anne said Tom's worth had never been the issue. The danger came from creating a position first and searching for legitimacy afterward. The crown, she explained, survived only when its rules applied most firmly to those standing closest to power. Charles finally accepted his share of the blame. The monarch admitted that he had seen the draft and failed to challenge it. His silence had not been support, it had been avoidance. By refusing to confront the problem early, he had forced Anne to take the harsher stand and made Camilla's humiliation far worse. Camilla picked up the final revocation notice. The Queen read the last paragraph, closed the folder herself, and handed it back to Charles. That simple act ended the resistance. Tom remained outside the official royal household. The advisory office was permanently abolished. The new approval safeguard entered palace procedure, ensuring that family connection could never replace proper scrutiny. Anne had not rebelled against Camilla. She had not tried to seize authority from Charles. She had defended the line between affection and duty, when those around her could not. The crisis ended without celebration or public apology, but with the monarchy's boundaries restored. Camilla kept her dignity. Charles accepted his failure. Anne proved why the crown had trusted her for decades. The palace revoked more than an appointment. It rejected the belief that closeness to power could replace accountability, and that verdict was final. Thanks for watching. Fans for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.